Welcome to I'm Too Busy, an interview-based show hosted by a talented makeup artist, Christina Flach. Christina offers viewers a unique blend of personal stories, inspiring journeys, and practical beauty tips. Join the conversation as Christina features successful individuals from various industries who share their insights on health, wellness, makeup, and the keys to their success. So now, please welcome the host of I'm Too Busy, Christina Flach.
Hi, I'm Christina Flach. Welcome to I'm Too Busy TV, where we explore the journeys, insights, and wisdom of accomplished professionals across all walks of life. Today, we're joined by a remarkable individual who has worn many hats, from World Series champion to business author and professional development expert. Buddy Biancalana is a former Major League Baseball shortstop who etched his name in baseball history as a key player in the Kansas City Royals' 1985 World Series championship. He was born in Marin County, California. He started his journey of baseball at Redwood High School, where his exceptional talent earned him a spot on the Mythical National Championship Team in 1977, recognizing him as one of America's top high school players. He was selected in the first round by the Kansas City Royals in 1978, and Biancalana would go on to make his mark in the 1985 World Series, where he started in all 14 postseason games with an impressive 278 batting average and 435 on-base percentage. His flawless defensive play and clutch performances helped secure the Royals' victory. Beyond his playing career, Buddy has remained deeply involved in baseball as a field manager, infield coordinator, and an author. His book, The 7 Secrets of the World-Class Athlete, shares insights from his remarkable career. In 2009, his achievements were recognized with his induction into the Redwood High School Athletic Hall of Fame. I would like to welcome Buddy Biancalana.
Hello, Christina.
Hi, how are you? Thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me. Nice to be here.
You have had quite a career, my friend.
Life is quite a journey. Twists and turns, bumps, and, there are a few bumps in the road, but I'm here and healthy and happy, and life is good. So
that's great. Your journey has taken you from professional athlete to author to motivational athletic and executive coach and business leader. How do the principles of high performance athletics translate to success in other professional realms?
Well, so many companies are wanting to hire athletes these days. And, years ago, athletes were could be talked about as, quote, dumb jocks. And what I've realized through my work and work with a lot of athletes and through my evolution is that we're far from dumb. There's some certain aspects of an athlete that are really pretty special. Not that I'm special, but in general, an athlete, the brain-body coherence that it takes to perform a sport well, really carry over into the everyday world. The physiology functions really, really well. And failure, right? Especially baseball, there's, you could be in the Hall of Fame and have failed 7 out of 10 times. So sports really teaches you how to, get up in the next moment. You just don't have time to sulk if things don't go your way. You've got to be ready for the next play, the next moment. And certainly, out in the real world, when we will all get knocked down from time to time, it's very beneficial to have that sports background to fall back on and know that, okay, this is just another strikeout or another error that I've got to be ready for the next play. So it really carries over. I never really realized it till a little bit later in life, but I'm blessed to have played sports, and I'm blessed to have learned a lot of lessons from playing sports, and certainly a lot of lessons from my time off the field as well.
I think a lot of companies realize the value of athletes. They're disciplined, they're team players. They know, just because there's a bump in the road, it's not the end of the world. I think athletes are an incredible asset to any company. Don't you think?
Yeah, well, you mentioned team, and that's so important. I was having this conversation with a client today, and the importance of really putting the team first. When you put the team first, it takes pressure off ourselves, right? If I'm just worried about how I'm doing, that fear that I'm experiencing is taking away from my full ability. Where if I can really focus on the team, the whole, the coherence of the team, then everybody does better. I'm going to perform better. The team's going to perform better. We're going to win. Everybody's going to get along better. When we talk about team, there's a study that I heard about that I always like to share. And there were like 10 people in a circle sitting down in chairs. And they were all hooked up to the same EEG wires measuring brain waves. So we're all connected. If you can imagine 10 people right here sitting in a circle, we're all connected by the same wire. We all have a light on our head. And we're instructed to all think a loving, kind thought for a period of time. And then prior to the instructions, one person was instructed to start to think a hateful thought after a period of time. And so for the first part of it, let's just say it was a minute, all of the lights illuminated. And then when the one person was instructed and began to think a hateful thought, all the lights were affected. So that's how we're all interconnected. And in a team environment, we used to call, one bad apple in the clubhouse was not a good thing. Well, scientifically, it's been proven it's not a good thing. So really, we all want to be in a good space and moving in the same direction, and things are going to work much better that way.
The pressure of performing in a World Series is immense. What strategies for handling pressure have you found most valuable in your various professional roles? And was the World Series the first time you were in the zone, or had you experienced that feeling prior and just didn't realize the magnitude of it?
Well, yeah, it was. My zone experience in the World Series was just remarkable. And truth be told, I was sitting in my locker. As a young kid, I knew I wanted to play Major League Baseball, but I never once thought about playing in a World Series. It's like too big an event. That's something I watch on TV every October. And even when I got to the big leagues, it never kind of crossed my mind that I'd play in the World Series. I was just I was in survival mode, right? When you're just in survival mode, you're just trying to get by, trying to stay in the lineup, trying to stay on the team, trying to earn a living. That's where I was. Well, all of a sudden, I'm sitting in my locker before Game 1 of the 1985 World Series. And with about 20 minutes to go, I had to be in the dugout for introductions. I was a starting shortstop. And all of a sudden, I got completely blindsided by the only thing I can call it was fear. And it was to the extent that if someone was 10 feet away from me, I knew for sure I couldn't catch the ball. That's how I felt. I was completely paralyzed with fear. And I'm like, and it just hit me. And usually before a game, Christine, I'd make myself a sandwich just to kind of, settle myself. I'd mood alter, right? I was mood altering pretty well in those days. And, but in that moment, there was no drug, there was no alcohol, there was nothing, no sandwich that was going to settle me. And I was forced for the first time in my life to say, man, this is really scary. I'm thinking, what am I going to do? I can't go play shortstop. I'm a starting shortstop. In 20 minutes I had to be on the field. And I just sat there. I said, wow, this is really scary. And that fear in my system subsided enough to where I said, okay, here we go. And I grabbed my bat, my helmet, my glove, and I made my way down the runway and waited for my name to be introduced. And next thing, that happened was I went out and I played arguably the 7 best baseball games of my whole life. I literally had a feeling that I couldn't do anything wrong almost if I tried. And, I hit 270. I hit 278. You said it was 73 points higher than my career average. I played errorless at shortstop. You choose my words carefully when I say but every single ground ball for 7 games hit me right in the sweet spot of my glove. And every throw came out of my hand with perfect speed and trajectory. And there was even one instance in St. Louis, there was a ball that kicked away from our second baseman, Frank White, on a stolen base attempt by Ozzie Smith. And it kicked into left center field, and I, ran out and retrieved it and just kind of picked it up and wheeled back and threw to second. No big deal. Anybody watching this podcast, listening to this podcast, could make the same play. It was no big deal. But what was really unique was in the moment, I had a feeling that I could have kicked him the ball, right? And I don't know if you've ever kicked a baseball, but it's not like kicking a soccer ball, okay?
Right.
It's a little tough. Yeah, it's a little tougher. And so, but that's how I felt. I really felt like, wow, there is a force that is more powerful than me that's taking place. And I just didn't understand what it was in the moment during that whole series. Thus, I was out of the big leagues 20 months later. because I just didn't understand it. I didn't know how to get it back. And, I continued to work as hard as I'd ever work, actually harder, because I knew, I felt more pressure to succeed after having, such a really good World Series on a big stage. And the subsequent pressure I felt from self-imposed, of course, but, media, fans, management, friends, family, the whole bit, was somewhat overwhelming. It just kind of cut me off further from my full ability. So 20 months later, again, out of the big leagues, because they had no idea how to repeat it. So, but, life's, life is full of lessons. So you got to, I always ask the question, if I'm going through a hard time, I always say, okay, what am I supposed to learn from this, right? And easier said than done sometimes, but that's the approach I take, and it's worked out well.
So how were you able to repeat that for 7 games and not feel like you could do that again after the World Series?
Well, when you don't understand how the brain functions and how the emotional body functions and how all of that integrates with physical mechanics, which are very, very important for an athlete, it's easy to get lost. What we know from our research and studies, and along with anecdotally, is that anytime a physical mechanic, which are very, very important for an athlete, but anytime the physical mechanic or the desired result, right? We always know what the desired result is, but anytime either of those becomes the priority for the brain, the muscles won't fire in a synchronistic manner. The information that you're processing won't get to the middle of the brain, which is where emotion is stored, and what's called the basal ganglia. And then it can't get to the back of the brain, which part of the motor system called the cerebellum, to allow all the muscles to fire in a synchronistic, harmonious, sequential manner. And so, most people, and myself still sometimes, we get too focused on the outer goal. There's nothing wrong with goals, but you're never going to forget, once you set a goal, you're never going to forget that's what you want. And so, what we're always after, every human is after the same thing. Everything we do in life, we do because we want to feel good. If we really think about it, break it down, why do we do what we do? Because we think it's going to help us feel good. It doesn't matter what it is. And so it's easy to get caught up in chasing something outside of ourselves. Nothing wrong. Again, we have to take action and strive and do the things we have to do and work hard, of course. But when an athlete's playing their best, they typically describe it 3 ways. They say that everything slowed down, they weren't thinking, and the motion's more fluid and effortless with great timing. And so that's an inner experience. So it's very important to make your inner state your priority as you're taking action for your desired result that you'll never forget you want. That make sense?
Yes. So what happened after the 20 months later, you were out of baseball, and where did you decide to go from there? Because I know it's really hard for a lot of athletes to transition to being a civilian. And did you find that to be a hard thing to do, or what did you think you were going to do after you retired?
Well, I had a back injury, and I'd had concussions at a young age. As a child, I fell off a bathroom counter when I was less than a year old. Had several concussions growing up, but I didn't know, back in those days, we didn't know, no one diagnosed you as a concussion. You stopped crying. Everybody thought you were all right. Well, I was far from all right. I'm just now starting to get really all right. So, yeah. So, my last year in '89 with the Royals, I was on the disabled list the entire year with a back injury. And so I took advantage of that. I got my real estate license. I got in commercial real estate, and also did a little broadcasting on the side on the weekends for the Royals pre and post game show. But I was not healthy. I never was too concerned about what I would do after baseball. I just knew that I would figure it out. I just had a deep belief in myself that, I'll figure it out. Now, that's a good thing, but I wasn't processing, the disappointment of leaving baseball. I wasn't processing all the things that can, all the emotions that can come up when, through life, that, through difficult moments, and how to process that energy so that it doesn't interfere with, what it is we want. And that's a big part of what I teach now, besides the mental, working on the emotional and the integration of the whole system, the physical, the mental, the emotional, and even the spiritual. The spiritual is, essential, because until we, really know who we are, there's always going to be a little fear attached, in life. And so when we can really, really discover who we are, then it's easier to process the fear, right? That will still creep in. It's easier to process that fear, and it doesn't impede us, on our journey as much.
We are going to take our first commercial break, and we'll be back with Buddy Biancalana. I'm Christina Flach, and I'm too busy.
Mike Zorek, a three-time California state champion in Greco-Roman wrestling at 114 pounds. Mike, blind since birth, was born in Hartford, Connecticut. He was a six-time national placer, including 2 seconds, 2/3, and 2/4. He also won the Veterans Folk-Style Wrestling twice at 152 pounds. In all these tournaments, he was the only blind competitor. Nancy Zorek, a creative spirit whose talents have taken her to the stage and into galleries and exhibitions in several states. Her father, a commercial artist who shared his instruments with his daughter and helped her fine-tune her natural abilities, influenced her decision to follow in his footsteps. Ms. Zorek has enjoyed a fruitful career doing what she loves. Listen Saturday mornings at 12 Eastern for the Nancy and Mike Show for heartwarming stories and interesting talk on the BBM Global Network.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent, but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of The Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on The Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
Welcome back. I'm Christina Flach, and we are chatting with Buddy Biancalana about all things baseball. So Buddy he also works with all different athletes, and he has worked with both my sons that are golfers. And why don't you talk to me a little bit about, working with different athletes?
Well,
and is it different with each is it different with each sport, or is it basically the same type of thing that you with everyone?
Pretty much the same. Certainly, different sports. They're obviously there's some things that are different that have to be addressed. Certain parts of emotion that need to be addressed, not from a motion perspective, but from a brain processing perspective. But years ago I was just working in baseball, and now I realize if I had to work in one sport, I'd get bored to death. So I love being able to work across multiple sports. Love working in the golf world. I like to say there's no better game on the planet than golf to master yourself in life, because there's very little margin for error, right? Hitting that little ball with a little club and trying to hit it straight can be very, very difficult. And there are a lot of things in our physiology that can interfere. I often tell the story of I was working with a PGA client. We were on the range at the Rocket Mortgage tournament in Detroit, maybe 4 years ago. And it was, I think it was Tuesday or Wednesday before the tournament on Thursday. And we're on the range, and he hit a ball, that kind of went to the right. And I said, "What happened there?" He said, "What do you mean? I hit the ball to the right." I'm like, "Okay." He says, I said, "But what happened?" He says, "What do you mean what happened? It's golf. You can't hit every ball well. It's a game of misses." And I said, "Well, that ball didn't just go there by itself. There was something that took place that caused that ball to go there." And he looked at me like, "Okay." And so the subtleties of our nervous system, of our entire physiology, and I say subtleties are really subtle, that can interfere with the proficiency of an athletic movement. And so golf, I love working in golf because it forces me to be better, to really identify, okay, What is it? Is it an emotion? Is it mental, or is it physical? Not that I understand everything about the swing, but they have their swing coaches for that. That's great, right? But so working and identifying those subtleties of golf, that's why golf is such an amazing game that I hope to play more of it myself, in the future. So, but love working in I've worked in, I think, over 20 sports, including auto racing, motorcycle racing in Europe. And it's a lot of fun to just get to know other athletes in different sports and try and help them as best I can.
Let's go back a little. So you were doing commercial real estate after you retired. And then what made you decide to start doing this? Like, what happened that you just said, I want to work with different athletes, and I think I have a system?
Well, I was healing my brain and body is what I was doing. I was searching all over to feel good. I've been to way more healers than you could ever imagine, just trying to figure out what was going on with me from a physical, mental, emotional perspective. And when you have concussions and you don't know you had concussions, it's very difficult to identify what's going on because, blood vessels, are just, you don't even know, but you're just not functioning well because the blood vessels are constricted, right? From trauma in the head. And so you just are looking all over for what the heck's wrong, emotionally feeling not great, mentally not feeling great, physically not feeling great, spiritually, it's tough to, stay really aligned and connected. So through all of that healing, I started to learn about the brain-body connection, just trying to feel better, and started utilizing that in some of my teaching with some baseball hitters, and started to see some, really cool things, and met a guy, Stephen Yellen, who had figured some things out and, put some things together. So it's, somewhat by accident, through my injuries, and really kind of searching to live a higher life, to feel better, that, kind of stumbled upon all this. And then, when I first started teaching what I teach, I knew that it worked, but I had no idea that it would do all that it does. And I'm completely blown away by the full effect that it has. We've done 6 studies now, 6 research projects. And the first research project was with golfers. We hooked them up to EEG sensors measuring brainwave activity while they were putting. And one of the things we saw, this was many years ago, we saw an increase in the theta brainwave state. And at the time, I really didn't even care. Okay, theta, whatever, that's fine. This was a long time ago, probably 14, 15 years ago. And it wasn't until a couple of San Francisco Giant pitchers' wives said that their husbands were in a better mood. And I said, well, they're pitching better. And they said, well, no, it's really independent of that. They're just in a better mood. And I said, that's interesting. And then I started to research. I remembered the research project, theta. Well, theta increases serotonin and oxytocin, 2 feel-good chemicals. And so, everything we do in life, we do for one reason, because we want to feel good. Well, it turns out that when we make feeling good our priority when it comes to sports, the theta brainwave state through the zone motion training, not only are we achieving our ultimate desire of feeling good, we're better able to achieve our outer desires of performing well. And so, just the training just does way more than I ever thought. I was just kind of, we stumbled upon this and started teaching it and saw remarkable results. Our first 4 professional hitters showed an average increase in batting average of 69 points each. And I was
That's remarkable.
Possible, but I later realized, what I'm doing is I'm teaching them how to access the origin of the motion, which is the brain. So anytime you have access to the origin of anything, including the foundation of a building, you then have a chance to, have the desired outcome, a strong building or a good swing or a good pitch or whatever the sport is.
Typically, how long does it take for your clients to notice improvement in whatever sport that they're doing? And how long do you usually work with these people? Is it something ongoing, or is it for just short periods of time?
Yeah, great question. So years ago, before I really knew what I was doing and understood, and before I understood neural pathways and the emotional body, I'd spend 3 days with a professional athlete, and off they'd go, and they all did pretty well. But what I noticed was there was just a steady decline, not off the cliff, but just a steady drop off in performance. And, I didn't quite understand why really, we didn't know the importance of staying in close contact and continuing to build and strengthen and maintain those neural pathways that are necessary for us to perform our best on a regular basis in whatever we're doing. So once I figured that out and started to spend longer periods of time with the athletes and started to really understand the emotional body, which will undermine brain functioning. Brain functioning is the brain's the operating system of muscles, but our emotions will undermine the brain functioning. So all of that's really, really important, and how that all works together, how it integrates, so that those things don't get convoluted so. But to answer your question, I mean, I've got clients that have been with me for 4 or 5 years, all the way down to, typically people are staying at least a year to work, and doing, as long as the key is if they just follow along, right? Just, you got to follow along.
Consistency is everything, don't you think?
Yeah. Oh my God. It's not easy being human. I mean, we can be human and just, kind of survive and struggle and struggle in this and that, relationships and business, whatever, right? But to really be able to be aligned where we're, fully confident on a regular basis, we feel, pretty good on a regular basis. It's not easy, especially with, the food supply and everything. It's, that's a whole nother subject. But all of that makes it a little bit difficult to be human. So, but as long as someone is very diligent and very consistent, communicates well, their whole life's going to improve with what we do. And, that with how I know you and Steve take care of yourselves.
So let me ask you, one of the things that really impressed me when you were working with my son was that you incorporated supplements and diet. So when did you bring that into, your philosophy on how you do these, do clients? Because I do think it is a huge component, and I talk about it in what I do, beauty from the inside out, what you eat, what you drink, your rest, being grateful, exercise, all of that matters on how you look. And I think it's the exact same with any athlete, how they have to take care of themselves from the inside out.
Exactly. For sure. So going back to when I first started working with some professional athletes, some athletes, would struggle more than others, and so it caused me to start to look at the lifestyle they were, living and the diet. And diet, the thing about diet is, I mean, people, we hear diet, right? Eat well, eat well, eat well. And I've never come across someone who hasn't said, yeah, I eat pretty well, and they just don't know what pretty well is. And, until one starts to make a few changes, stop eating this, start eating this, they really don't know, the difference. You can't see down the road what it's going to be like until you have the experience. And so that's kind of maybe my most challenging part of what I teach, because the rest of it is all based on neurophysiological experiences that are undeniable. But when it comes to the diet, that's when I say, okay, that everything we've taught you till now, for sure that works. Yes, that works. Okay. Now, what I'm going to tell you now, you don't know. You have no idea that what I'm telling you now that's going to have a benefit in your life. And so they start to dabble, right, a little bit, and they feel a little bit better, and and then they subtly start to make the changes, which can take time. Really changing how we eat is really difficult, especially so often. We can eat as a mood altering method, right? Just to kind of, our emotions are a little unsettled. It's easy to go to the refrigerator and grab something to eat instead of just like saying, okay, just be with, how I feel right now. So, that's what I used to do before my games. I'd go make myself a sandwich just to change how I felt. And it doesn't work. It just, it just suppresses so, but, now, it's a big part of what I do. I have a very funny story.
Tell me, I want to hear.
I was just I started working with a new pitcher, a D1 college pitcher a few weeks ago. And prior to my starting to work with him, I was working with one of his teammates, and I was with his teammate in the batting cage at the college, the university. And this kid who I'm now working with started kind of interrupting. He said, hey, I'm really interested in what you're doing. He started asking a bunch of questions, and I answered a few of the questions. And I said, are you okay? Let me finish up with my client here, and then I'm happy to chat with you. So, yeah, no problem. Sorry about that. And so he had a box of donuts in his hand, pink box of donuts. Okay.
Stop.
Yeah. And I said, and I was in the batting cage, I said, hey, first things first, before we even talk, you can't be eating what you're eating right now. And he said, all right, I'll get rid of them right now. So he walked over to the garbage can, and there was a guy, he was going to throw them away. And all of a sudden, this guy came walking along, a heavier set gentleman. And he said, hey, do you want these donuts? And the guy said, why would I want those donuts? I look like a donut. And the kid threw a full box of donuts, or probably, I don't know, 4 or 5 donuts, threw them in the trash can. And so I said, here's the first thing. I said, I'm happy to talk, but I have no chance of helping you if you're going to eat donuts. And so so he got off those right away. And now we're working.
I mean, sugar is a drug. It's so addictive. I mean, I tell my kids that it's poison. And that's the problem with cookies and cake. I mean, who doesn't like it? I love them, but I know that one cookie, leads to 25 more. So I just omit them. I think it's just, and I think once you know that though, because now that I do know that, I know right now I've kind of changed my diet I wake up and have water and lemon, a green juice, and protein first thing in the morning. And I've lost 10 pounds. And my energy's better. I feel better. I look better. I mean, it's remarkable how diet can really alter your mood, the way you look, the way you feel. It's really extraordinary.
Yeah.
So we're going to take another break, and we have another guest, Steve Compagno, coming up, an old teammate of yours, and we're going to go back in time.
My lifelong friend.
Your lifelong friend. All right, we'll be right back. I'm Christina Flach, and I'm too busy.
Dr. RC will share extraordinary resources and services that promote educational success, as well as making a difference in the lives of all social workers, as well as the lives of children, adolescents, and teens of today. She will have open discussions addressing many of the issues that we face about our youth and how being employed in the uniquely skilled profession of social work for over 18 years has taught invaluable lessons through her personal experiences. She will also provide real-life facts, examples, and personal stories that will confirm that why serving as a child advocate is extremely beneficial when addressing the needs of the whole child. Listen live to Dare to Soar, Saturdays, 10 a.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network, and tune in radio as Dr. RC will provide thought-provoking information that will empower, encourage, and strengthen students, families, and communities across our nation. You can also visit her at soarwithkatie.com. Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness, Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them, rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies, find settings that allow them to be the most productive, and track their progress towards accomplishing goals. Listen to John Hawkins' My Strategy, Saturdays, 1 p.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio.
Hello, I'm Christina Flach, and we are back with Buddy, and we are going to introduce Steve.
Flach is back. Flach is back.
Flach is back.
That's your slogan. That's your little jingle. Flach is back.
Thank you, Steve, for being with us today.
Anything to be around my lifelong friend.
Yeah,
Buddy. That's so nice. So why don't you guys, let's go back in time. I know you guys played baseball together when you were growing up. You guys were on extraordinary teams. I'm just curious, when you look back at your teams, obviously you were all incredibly talented, but was there a special chemistry that your team had that took you to be the top team in the country?
You got it,
What do you
Steve.
think, Lou?
I think we worked really hard. Steve was like really driven. Steve was maybe definitely one of the most competitive athletes I think I played with in high school. Frank Ferroni probably being another one. Ross Orange. We had several of them though, but Steve was one of those guys. You know what's unique about Steve?
What?
Steve was a pitcher on the baseball team left-handed and a quarterback on the football team right-handed.
That's unbelievable. It's very rare that.
Both
Isn't that
sides
wild?
of the brain were working.
What's that?
I said both sides of the brain were working,
I guess so, right?
except in the classroom.
Oh, you were a good student, man. You were a very good student. Yeah, we had some good times.
What do you
together.
think, Steve? Was that something that you felt was the chemistry, the hard work? What did you feel that made your team so exceptional?
Well, at that time, Redwood had what, 2,800 students? So there
Yep.
were 100 guys that went out for baseball. So it was super competitive. And we were all held to a higher standard, which there was one way that it was going to be done, and you either got on that boat or you didn't get on. So there was no interpretation as to what was expected. That's for sure. But
And was
when I look back at that, being a sophomore and being part of that team in 1976 and having leaders like Frank Ferroni, Ross Orenshaw, Chuck Hall, Buddy was a starting shortstop. I mean, it was not Tony Girallis. There were really, really good players that all aspired to play after high school. And a lot of
so
them
Steve,
did.
I know that you went on to play in college and you played for the Yankee organization on their farm team for 5 years. How many other of your teammates went on to play professionally?
Steve Travers, Frank Ferroni, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, Buddy,
Greg Zanino,
Zanino,
Gary
Mickey
Zanino.
Meister, Jimmy Jones, Gary Zanino. There was
Yeah,
at least
Mickey Meister. Yeah, we had quite a few.
Did you guys play against each other? Like when you guys turned pro, did you play against any of your past teammates? That would have been really fun, don't you think?
We played against. I played against Steve England, I think.
I would have played a lot longer if I could face Buddy more often.
Oh boy, here we go. Okay.
Here it goes. Now it's on. All right, Buddy, your turn. Get back at it. Gloves are off.
Here's a story, Christina. You've probably heard this story. I'll tell the story. But I never knew Steve until high school. But we competed against each other in punt, pass, and kick. And I got second place. I had the silver trophy every year. And Steve won the gold every year. So the first time he ever came over to my house, you can take it from there, Steve.
I walked into his room and I was like, "Where'd you get all these trophies?" And he said, "Well, I was in punt, pass, and kick every year." And I said, "Well, they're all silver." He said, "Yeah, because all the gold ones are at your house." And when I look back at that, I may have those gold trophies, but Buddy has that 85 World Series ring. And that was probably, looking back, having, we became very close friends in high school, and that has continued to this day. But to have your friend being at game 6 and game 7, we were driving to game 6. Buddy probably doesn't remember this, but we were going to the ballpark, and he said, I need to get gas in my car. And he got out and he said, you need to drive. I got to lay down in the back seat because I don't want anybody to see me. And I'm thinking, okay, wait a minute. This guy is like, was bigger than life at that time. Everybody knew him. Nobody knew me. So I just went in, got gas, drove, went around the block, and, he basically took it from there. But what an experience to be, to see your friend climb that mountain, get there, and be able to be in the locker room after they win it in game 7 was just, it was an incredible experience.
And it
Buddy,
meant the
what
world.
was that like for you? I mean, what was that like for you to have your friend there with you to share that experience? That's really special.
Yeah, no, he and another friend, Len Tallarico, both came. Yeah, it was great. Awesome. Because, we had our teammates, but there's nothing like old friends in life, right? There's just nothing like old friends, right? You get together, you tell the old stories like we're doing right now, it's like an old pair of jeans, right? What's better than an old pair of jeans? So no, it meant a lot to me that, some of my friends were able to be there when we won game 6 and game 7. They were in the clubhouse for game 7 after for the celebration. It was great.
It was, looking back, it was really, and to be honest, the first part of it was like, I wish that was me. And then the second part is, it was part of me because you did it. And that was really unbelievable. And that team was unbelievable.
Yeah,
Brett Saberhagen was unbelievable.
Yeah, he was. We're having our, I hate to say it, but our 40-year reunion next May here for the Royals. It'd be fun to see everybody. And, yeah, it was quite a time in my life, amazing time in my life. You just never, like I said, you never fathomed playing a World Series. All of a sudden, there he was. Like, what am I,
So, Buddy, you're still pretty connected into the baseball world. I mean, heavily connected. Are you still working with Kansas City, or
I've worked with a lot of individuals. I've worked with a lot of individuals for many organizations, but not within a team environment. Most people. One thing that I've learned in 17 years, 18 years now of teaching what I teach, that people can only hear and see what they're ready to hear and see. It doesn't matter what you tell them, what you write to them, what you show them, or what you prove with science. Doesn't matter. And we're seeing a lot of that in our society these days as well. But until you're ready to look at your belief system, it's really difficult to really grow to what we could be. And so baseball's, they're starting to understand the brain a little bit more so, but there have been plenty of frustrating moments for me, trying to educate people when their belief system, there's no space. There has to be space in our minds to say, oh, let me see. What don't I know? What can't I see right now? You have humility, right? Humility is so important in life. I had a conversation about a year ago. My son and I was down at University of Missouri. My son goes to Missouri. And we're at the football. It's Father's Weekend at the football game, when they had the football game the whole bit. So we did the tailgating. And then I said, Gavin, let's go over and see some other friends across the way here. And so we started to walk through the parking lot, and there was a fence, 3-foot high fence. And he said, can you hop the fence? And I said, I guess I can hop. I can climb over the fence. I'm not going to hop it. So he just bounces over it. Like, he's an incredible athlete, bounces right over it. And I climb over it. And I said, Gavin, that's really cool, man. That's so great. I said, but make sure you stay humble. And he says, I pray for humility every day, he told me. And then I said to him, do you know why it's important to be humble? And he was like, no. And I said, because when you think you know, you're cutting yourself off from what you don't know. So you always want to ask, "Ooh, what don't I know? What can't I see?" And
So
you know,
true.
yeah, and it's easy, as we have success in life and get more confident in what we're doing, to think that, okay, I got it, I figured it out, I'm good, and there's the universe will slam us, that. So I always ask myself, when things are going really well, I'm like, okay, I look around like, okay, what do I need to be aware of right now? What do I need to be aware of?
That's true. Steve, after you retired and you went on to have a successful career in the mortgage business and you coached Redwood High School and your teams were amazing. Did you incorporate any of these things that Buddy has taught you over the years to your players? And do you continue doing that today?
I do, and I have, and I understand a lot about what Buddy does. And he said something really important, that if they're not willing to listen, then they're not going to understand what you're saying. And one of the first things that I've found in coaching is players don't care what you know until they know that you care. And if you earn their trust and you show them that you care about them, you can then teach them anything. And one of the things that I try to do, the X's and O's are great. You don't need to be a great X and O person to have a successful team. You need to understand who your players are, where they're from, what makes them go, what makes them, and as Buddy said, everything we do in life is to feel good. What makes them feel good? Is it a safe place for them? When I was at Redwood, I had multiple kids that lived in Marin City that I drove there every day for 3 or 4 years and picked them up and drove them to school, make sure they got there. Didn't have to do that, but that was part of the responsibility that comes, with coaching.
And the commitment, right?
Yeah, and I coached with a guy at Redwood, Alan Sullivan, and Alan Sullivan wrote something on the board one day that I never forgot. And he wrote, I care about what you do over the next 32 years than for the next 32 minutes, because the game was 32 minutes long.
Love it.
Mm-hmm.
And I read that and I just went, yeah, if you get your guys to feel good, get them to feel like they're part of something, that they identify with, being a basketball player, for example, at Redwood. They hadn't won a championship there in 31 years. And when Buddy and I were growing up, in the late 60s, early 70s, Redwood's basketball program was the most dominant program in the county. And I just happened to be a ball boy for those teams because my uncle played there, my dad worked there, and they went undefeated in 1971. And the next time they went undefeated was 2010. And I just happened to be the guy that was standing on the sidelines as their head coach.
Well, you didn't happen to be there. You brought the championship. Steve was a great coach, really, and I'll just say he really, really cared about his players. What he's saying, and we did a call the other day. He picked up he had one of those kids from Marin City in his car that he's still helping.
He was the MVP of the league that year in 2010.
Yeah.
He was helping me do some stuff at my mom's house, and it's all about relationships.
Yeah.
And formulating those relationships, and getting back to what you said, everything you do in your life is to make you feel good. And I love coaching because of those relationships.
Yeah.
And I'm now in Sitka, Alaska, coaching high
Well,
school basketball, getting ready to go to the
Wow.
gym here in 20 minutes. We have open gym, and they lifted this morning at 7 a.m. and these kids have bought in. And that's
yeah.
I want
what's
to hear
really,
more about this. I'm so sorry. We're going to take a commercial break. I'm Christina Flach, and I'm with Steve and Buddy, and we are going to be talking about all things sports when we return.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent, but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of the Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on the Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
Mike Zorek, a 3-time California state champion in Greco-Roman wrestling at 114 pounds. Mike, blind since birth, was born in Hartford, Connecticut. He was a 6-time national placer, including 2 seconds, 2 thirds, and 2 fourths. He also won the Veterans Folk-Style Wrestling twice at 152 pounds. In all these tournaments, he was the only blind competitor. Nancy Zorek, a creative spirit whose talents have taken her to the stage and into galleries and exhibitions in several states. Her father, a commercial artist who shared his instruments with his daughter and helped her fine-tune her natural abilities, influenced her decision to follow in his footsteps. Ms. Zorek has enjoyed a fruitful career doing what she loves. Listen Saturday mornings at 12 Eastern for the Nancy and Mike Show for heartwarming stories and interesting talk on the BBM Global Network.
Hello, I am Christina Flach, and I am with Steve and Buddy, and we are talking about sports today, one of my favorite subjects. So why don't we just keep going back? You both have worked with different athletes. What do you feel is the key component to getting them to trust you, to buy into drinking the Kool-Aid, so to speak, of your philosophy on becoming the best athlete and the best person you can be? Buddy, do you want to answer that first?
Sure. Give them an experience that feels good to them, and give them an experience that allows them to perform better. And if you do that, then you've got buy-in. We work with neuroscience based stuff, so it's kind of an experience they have that frees them up, that allows them to feel good right away, which is really helpful. And then certainly there are many other aspects of a sport that are important. And so just, give them an experience that shows that they can be better, and then buy-in is there. And showing, like Steve says, show that you really care. You got to care about somebody as a human to be a great coach, in my opinion. You've got to really care about someone as a human first, and if they're not good enough, they're not good enough, but really, care about them, and know that, hey, if this isn't their path, that they'll find their path. It used to be hard. When I was managing pro ball, a lot of people said it was so hard to release somebody, when you just had to tell them, it's not going to happen. You're headed home. That the Phillies or the Rays are going to release you. And for me, it was like, I didn't think it was hard because I knew I was doing the person a favor. They can get on with their life and on a path that, they're better suited for. So, so the sooner, we all know that, this isn't for me, I'm going to go do this, the better.
Yeah. So Steve, what about you? You've taken on this new coaching job up in Sitka. how do you compare coaching up there to coaching where you coached previously? Do you find it to be more challenging, or is it easier now that you've had so much experience?
Um, the kids are still the same. And, one of the things is that doesn't change, and Buddy kind of touched on this, is you have to be honest with them. Like, we're giving you every opportunity. And if it doesn't work out, you just have to be honest with them and say, you're not gonna make this team. It's a lot easier here. The school's 400 kids or 320 kids, whereas Redwood's 2,200, and you had 80 guys trying out for the freshman team. It's easy to get the first 6 or 8 right and the bottom 30, but it's the middle 40 where you're never going to get it right. So you do the best you can, and you're as honest as possible. And I think one of the things that's changed, because I coached at Redwood from 2008 through 2019, kids today, they have a different concept of authority. Like, I would never, and I know Buddy would probably say the same thing, if we were walking through a grocery store and saw our coach, we'd never say, "Oh, hi, Al, how are you?" He was always referred to as coach wherever we were. It could be church, the store, the barber shop, practice. It's always coach. And I find it very interesting that outside of the gym, like, these kids will go, "Hey, Steve, how's it going?" And doesn't bother me, but you have to, I think today's kid is a little more delicate with the way that you can talk to them, and tapping into their feelings is more. I have to do that more, knowing where they're from, who their parents are, what's going on in their life, what they do in school. It's not an easy job. And
What about you, Buddy?
It,
I'm sorry, finish your sentence. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
I'm good.
Buddy, what about you? Do you find it more difficult dealing with your athletes now as opposed to 15, 20 years ago?
No, not for me. I don't. It's easier for me. It's easier dealing with athletes now because, in general, athletes are taking better care of themselves now. They're mentally healthier now than 15, 20 years ago. So I would not say that. I think, getting back to diet, I think the diet's even more important now than it was then. I don't know. I'd have to think more about that, Christina. But I wouldn't say it's more difficult for me. I understand why kids are softer now. They're just they're mentally more stable, but they're not quite as connected as they can be. And it can be portrayed as soft, and
Right.
yeah. And so, try and strengthen them up by having them connect with themselves.
I think
Steve, do you factor in diet with your team right now, Steve?
I try to. It's very different up here. There's not a lot of external stimulation. There's not really a movie theater. There's not a bowling alley. There's a lot of everything shipped in from Seattle. So there's a lot of processed foods. And you have to be, I'm on these guys all the time. I probably have 5 guys walking around with a box of pink donuts right now.
Oh my God. Yeah, it's really complicated in people's
Free throws with
lives.
no time left on the clock, Steve.
Pardon me?
It'll be tough to hit those free throws with no time left on the clock.
I know. But Buddy has worked with some of my teams. And he worked with my son, Joe, when he was in college and improved his free throw shooting percentage from what, Buddy, the mid 60s to the high 80s?
I can't recall, but
Yeah, but you did.
yeah.
And
That's
I do
so
incorporate a lot of what we talk about.
I mean, I think the mind is so powerful. And if you can learn to get your mind, set a goal and just be focused on what you want, your mind will go there. But I mean, when people have a negative attitude or they think, oh, I can't do it, your mind and your body think, okay, I can't do it. So if you can get, like you both have clearly done, you've inspired these kids to greatness. And I think it's wonderful. And it does make a big difference in people's lives. And people don't forget their coaches. Both of you remember your coaches from when you were growing up and how important they were to you. I want to thank both of you for being here today. I could go on with the two of you for.
I wanted to hear what you're doing.
What I'm doing?
I want to hear about your new line of makeup. Do you have time?
Oh my gosh, I wish. We don't have time today. We're gonna have to do that on another episode. But I want to thank my team. I want to thank Christian, Maya, Avery, and he who shall be nameless that makes me laugh and smile all the time. So thank you so much for being here. I will be back next week, and I'm Christina Flach.
Thanks, Christina.
See you, buddy.
Thank you.
This has been I'm Too Busy with host Christina Flach. Tune in each week as Christina approaches the concept of success holistically, recognizing that achievement is not solely measured by financial triumphs, but also by maintaining a healthy work-life balance and focusing on self-care. Wednesdays, 7 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave TV network, powered by B2 Studios.